Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. We are from group 5 and today we would like to discuss on our case study which is banning Burkas, freedom or discrimination. But first, let me introduce my group members. First we have Muhammad Faris Jahmi, Muhammad Iskandar, Liana Alia and me, Irdina Humaira. First and foremost, let me briefly explain what is the meaning of ethical theories. Ethical theories can be defined as a systematic exposition of a particular view about what is the nature and basis of good or right. There are two types of theories, which is consequentialist that consists ethical egoism and utilitarianism, and non-consequentialist that consists of Kant moral theory, natural theory, and virtue ethics. We will explain more in the video after this, but let's hear the summary case study first.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Iskandar bin Shamsul Azhar, and I will be summarizing the case study which is banning burqas. Is it freedom or discrimination? So before we can start on summarizing the case study, we have to understand what is a burqa. Burqa is a long loose garment where it covers a woman from head to toe. As you can see in the picture that I have provided, burqa is where a woman is concealed thoroughly, including their face, legs, or hands, and so on. It is mostly famously known to be worn by Muslim women in order to conceal themselves from the gazing eyes of men. It is also worn in order to adhere to the Islamic religion, where women are required to wear non revealing clothes in order to protect themselves from any unwanted misfortune. So basically, burqa is a kind of a religious covering for protection of women from the lustful eyes of men or any form of molestation and sexual desires made by this opposite sex. With that said, we understand what is a burqa now. We can start with summarizing the case study. Basically, in September 2010, the French Parliament has passed on a bill where concealing the face of a person is prohibited in public areas. So basically, any form of concealing of the face is not allowed in public areas, such as wearing masks, wearing headgears, and of course, wearing burqas. The bill was made based on an earlier bill in 2004 where all religious symbols are prohibited at public school. So basically, any form of religious symbols are not allowed in school, such as the Christian cross, the Star of David, and of course, the wearing of headscarf for Muslim women. So then, the French Islamic community challenged the bill by saying that the French governments are infringing their rights and discriminating them from practicing their cultures. When the French Parliament has passed on a bill where concealing the face of a person is prohibited, it's basically saying that wearing burqas and niqabs are not allowed in public areas. So basically, those who are living in France are not allowed to wear niqabs and burqas in open spaces or in public areas. So it's like they are infringing the Muslim community rights where they are able to practice their culture without any trouble or any problem. In 2014, the bill was challenged again. The bill was challenged and was brought to the European Court of Human Rights, but the law was perfectly legal from the point of view of the court and caused no trouble. So basically, the law was upheld by the European Court. All right, going back to our main topic, is it really discrimination or is it really freedom towards the Muslim communities? When the bill was passed by the parliament, by the French parliament, on banning any form of concealing face headwear, especially burqas and niqabs towards the Muslim communities. So, is it really discrimination or is it really freedom? So, before we can decide whether is it discrimination or is it freedom, we have to understand what freedom and discrimination means. Alright, so first we'll look at freedom. Freedom can be defined as the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants. It is also associated with having free will and being without undue or unjust constraints or enslavement by other forces. So a person has the freedom to do things that they will not, in theory or in practice, be prevented by other forces. So basically, a person can do whatever he or she wants as long as it's not endangering themselves, endangering the person around them, or breaking any sort of law. So, when the French Parliament decided on passing this bill, was it really to give freedom towards the Muslim women, or basically infringing their right to express themselves? From the perspective of the French Parliament, they think that they are liberating the Muslim women from wearing niqab or hijab or burqas and so on, while some Muslim women thinks that they are infringing their right in wearing burqas and niqabs, and also not allowing them to practice their religion or their to adhere to their religion or cultural heritage. So, what is it? Is it really freedom or something else when the bill was passed by the French Parliament? All right, next is discrimination. Discrimination can be simply defined as the unfair or prejudicial treatment of people and groups based on characteristics such as race, religion, gender, age, or sexual orientation. So, basing on our case study, is it really discrimination towards the Muslim community when the French Parliament decided on passing the bill? From the perspective of the Muslim community, I would say yes, because they are preventing um, Muslim women from wearing burqas and niqabs. So basically, they are not allowing, they are infringing their rights and basically discriminating them from being able to practice their own cultural heritage or basically adhere to their own religion. But from the perspective of those of from non-Muslims, they can see that it's not really discrimination towards one group, since the law basically says the bill basically says that it bans the concealment of uh, any kind of headwear that conceals the face. So it's really not discriminating towards one group that based on any characteristics that I have said earlier. So basically, these two, discrimination and freedom, is really subjective from the point of the viewers. So yeah, we can't really decide from it's really each to their own perspective really. So with that said, I would like to pass on to to the next presenter. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Liana Alia, and I will proceed with the ethics theories of the case banning brokers, freedom or discrimination. Brief introduction on the ethical theory. Ethical theory provides reasons or norms for judging acts to be right or wrong, and attempt to give a justification for these norms. It provides ethical principles or guidelines that express or describe certain values. This can be used to decide in particular cases what action should be chosen and carried out. Ethical theory is a general theory about which actions are right or wrong, and why those actions are right or wrong. Some theories judge action in terms of their motive, some in terms of the character or the act itself, and others in terms of the consequences of the action or practices. The Dutch ban for the cases applies to some public spaces such as government buildings, schools, hospital, public transportation, but not to others. Many Dutch, however, have the mistaken impression on the law that they thought the law applies to all public spaces. This is the consequences of the action or the law being taken. Those theories that hold action can be right or wrong regardless of their consequences are called non-consequentialist or deontological theories. Based on the case, it is according to Kant moral theories under non-consequentialist. According to Kant, our motives are in our control. In this case, women wearing niqabi are forced to choose between their religious life or their civic rights, health, security, public parenting, access to schooling, and freedom of movement. Therefore, it is clearly that their motives are not in their control, like Kant theories. Supposedly, Kant mentioned that we are responsible for our motive to do good or bad things, and by doing that, we are held morally accountable. Kant also believed that an act has specifically moral worth only if it done with the right intention or motive. Kant also referred this in other words as a goodwill. Based on the banning Burkas case, representative bodies of some schools have been resentful. They do not want the government to intrude on their right to decide school dress policies by themselves. And even universities have taken opposing stances, with some cooperating and others actively countering. All have emphasized that they have not had any problem with niqabis, and they mentioned they have no need for the law to be applied. Therefore, it is clear that the Dutch have no such a motive, and doesn't have an act that doesn't have a moral worth, which is no clear intention or motive for such a law. Apart from that, Kant also believed that having a right intention to do what is right, just because it is right. In Kant's words, it is act out of duty. Therefore, only when an act is motivated by this concern of morality or the moral laws, then Kant would say it does have a moral worth. However, the law of the banning Burkas makes the niqabi a stereotype target. Since the state extends its monopoly on violence to citizens, it points to niqabi women as exceptional threat to collective public body, national hygiene, and physical well-being, such that any and all citizens have the right to use force and expel them from the public space. This is clearly an act which not motivated and doesn't have a concern of morality. Based on Kant theory, it doesn't have a moral worth in it. Moving on to the two different formulation for Kant's principles. The first formulation, it is unconditional and applies to all person, as in universal, the person as in person rather than individual, which all the person are simply required to do what they can accept or will to do, that everyone does. However, for banning burqas case, this law applied to all citizens and all forms of face covering, as mentioned in the case. Because of the rhetoric surrounding, bill targeted Muslim women, especially who wore burqas. This is a formulation mentioned by Kant for his first formulation. It is everyone, as in person, do what they can accept or will. For the case, it is unacceptable for Muslim women because they cannot do what they're willing or accept to do. The second form is we ask to consider what constitutes of the proper treatment of person as person. According to Kant, one key characteristic of person is their ability to set their own goals. Based on the case, it has resulted a number of women protested the bill by dressing in burqas and going to the offices of the lawmakers who supported the legislation. Apart from that, other reports from individual women who suggested the law created a more hostile atmosphere for Muslim women in France. Therefore, as the second form of Kant principle, it is an improper treatment of Muslim women, especially as person, which they are unable to set such ability for their goals, and they are being treated inappropriately for being targeted persons just because wearing burqas. Therefore, for Kant theory, Kant believe that we should treat persons or individuals as having value in themselves and not just having instrumental values. Therefore, Muslim women are supposed to be treated as having values in themselves, especially women who wearing burqas. People are valuable in themselves regardless whether they are loved, whether they are valued by others. Muslim women are valued even they are wearing burqas, and they should be treated with a proper treatment, and the Dutch should have a goodwill before and consideration in order to apply the law, and also should have include Kant's theories in terms of moral worth, which have a morality and a right intention to do such an act or law. And I think that's all from me. We will proceed to the next presenter on the discussion questions. Thank you.
My name is Muhammad Faris and I will explain the discussion part. The answer for question number 1 is banning all form of religious expression in public places did not create a more pluralistic society. It is because the meaning of pluralistic society itself, where it is a diverse one, where the people in it believe all kinds of different things and tolerate each other's belief even when they don't match their own. Next, we move to discussion number 3. Not all religious practices should be allowed and be tolerated in a free society. There should be a limit on the religious practices. We support the free choice of religious belief. However, if such belief threatens civil society and the peace or harm to others or the children, then the society has a right or duty to protect such interests. For example, if there any religious practice that seems to be disturbing towards others, then it should be done behind closed doors. Thus, all freedom has limit. This limit exists to create stability and to keep the society in harmony. For question number 3, Malaysia should not implement a ban on face coverings in public. Islam is the major religion in Malaysia with 61.3% from the total population. From the 61.3%, many of them, especially Muslim women, were wearing the full veil. A ban on face covering should be implemented on certain occasions, such as airport checks, school pickups, administrative dealings with state officers, female guard, teacher, state or bank employee, which are all obvious examples of where a person may need to prove their identity. As for question number 4, the religious garments and iconography from all faith traditions should not be banned as occurred in France in 2004. It is against individual or citizen freedom as it does not have any destructive result. The function of clothes is to cover body parts, to make individual become more beautiful, and finally as the symbol of different social position or political, cultural, religious affiliation. When a state prohibits the citizen to wear it, it is not prohibiting a symbol but denies its citizen their right. Last but not least, for discussion number 5, separation of church and state means public institution can't be used for religious function and need to avoid the appearance of favoring a religion. The government said they will not prohibit the free exercise of religion. In other words, the right to choose one's own faith or to choose no faith inheres in each individual. Religion and politics can be polarizing precisely because they deal with important matters that are deeply personal and close to our passion. But this discussion do not have to be polarizing or combative. Intolerance of another person's faith is a personal choice and not a legal requirement.
To relate back with Kant's theory, there are two questions that we must ask ourselves. First question, can I rationally will that everyone act as I propose to act? If the answer is no, then we must not perform the action. And the second question is, does the action taken can respect the goals of human beings rather than merely using them for our own purpose? Again, if the answer is no, then we must not perform the action. To conclude, by imposing all those laws, we believe that it will create many racism towards Islamic religion as Muslims cannot practice their belief peacefully. This can consider as breach of human rights and also religion right. With that, thank you everyone.